Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen, Chapter 15, Queen Meets Princess. It's dreadful what little things lead people to misunderstand each other. L.M. Montgomery, Emily's Quest. I felt the cool desert air on my back as I appeared in the Badlands and the deceptive firmness of fine sand below my hooves. I hadn't visited the Badlands in some time, but there was one place I keenly remembered, a site for me to anchor my concentration and allowed me to create the portal. A lone obelisk stood in the desert sand, a monument to the last battle and the first war of my reign, a civil war that had almost torn Equestria apart. Time and the desert catabats had not been kind to the obelisk, and much of its detail, its glyphs, had been wiped away, and its marble pedestal was hidden by sand. But I still remembered the tears that had been shed at this monument, the sorrow I held for ponies who gave their lives to me. A deceiver. On that day of mourning, I swore on that monument to give my all in order to protect my ponies from all conflict, no matter if I had to abandon my vendetta to do so. It seemed perfect to revisit the place where I had not only acknowledged Equestria's ponies as my ponies, but the memory where I had promised to lay aside my vengeance for the ones I loved. I needed to be reminded of my oath, because I feared for the moment that my eyes laid sight on Chrysalis. My anger, much as it fueled me, terrified me. It stretched behind me like a dark shadow, waiting to pounce. I slowly exhaled and looked past the monument to the great chasm, where the red rock of the Badlands appeared to have been cut into ribbons. I wasted no time admiring the scenery, lest I lose what resolve I had left. So, I spread my wings and flew. Chrysalis yawned widely, the languorous sound echoing through her private chambers. With a grunt, the queen shifted on her makeshift bed of animal furs and stolen equestrian fabrics and cushions. The combination of what most ponies would find disgusting in comparison to what some of her subjects would see as soft made a bed that was surprisingly comfortable to sleep on. As her body relaxed and her mind slipped into slumber, the queen licked her lips as she let the problems her hive was facing fade into the back of her mind. The banging of frantic knocks threw Chrysalis out of her sleep. She sprang to her hooves, throwing away her blankets and fur coats as she made her way to the door. While Chrysalis rapidly blinked away the sleep that she held, she wondered what could possibly warrant the guard interrupting her rest. The queen opened a crack in the door, showing the concerned face of the guard. That worried Chrysalis, but not unduly. Her door guards had always been high-strung.
"Why did you wake me?"
demanded Chrysalis in a tone that suggested extreme annoyance.
"Princess Celestia,"
stammered the guard. The queen examined the guard more closely and frowned. The changeling soldier was quaking in his carapace, his fangs making an awful chattering sound as they chafed together. The queen's muscles tensed. There was something more intense about the soldier's fear that made her heart shudder. Chrysalis frowned.
"Princess Celestia what?" "Princess Celestia arrived at her hive's entrance. She demanded to be taken to the throne hall, and we had to oblige."
The guard barely finished a sentence before Chrysalis slammed the door open and charged to her throne. She raced through the tangled web of corridors within the hive to the final doorway that led to the hall. Once there, the queen took a deep breath to still her, and the fear shaking her slender frame. She wanted to be prepared for whatever the Princess of Equestria had in store for her, yet as she tried to calm herself, Chrysalis could not stop questions from running through her head. Why was Celestia here? Was it because she didn't come to the Everfree Forest? What did the Alicorn plan to do with her hive? Chrysalis squashed her panic pounding in her heart and snarled. Whatever the princess had in store for her, she would confront it as a changeling queen. There were times for changelings to run and vanish, but this was not the time to do so. With a soft click, Chrysalis opened the door with her magic and trotted into the hall. At the clip of hoofsteps, Alternia's silent contemplation was interrupted. Through half-lidded eyes, Alternia watched her sister make her way to her throne. Vehemence and fury choked Alternia's throat as she examined her older sister. Her mother's death and a much younger Chrysalis's vindictive expression coming to the forefront of her mind. Her muscles tensed, ready to spring, and Alternia almost snarled. Out of nowhere, another image quickly juxtaposed itself on top of Chrysalis's sneering expression. It was of a ruined Equestria, thousands of dead ponies and changelings lying on the ground. A massive obsidian obelisk stood over the bodies, its long shadow cutting over their corpses. Quickly, Alternia blinked her eyes and exhaled slowly. She would not let that happen. She hated her sister, but she could not let any pony or changeling blood be spilt because of her want for vengeance. Anger reigned in, Alternia examined the changes that time had wrought on Chrysalis. The queen's steady walk had become more regal, but at the same time heavier. The keen, determined energy she used to have was dulled. But there was fear, greatly suppressed, but Alternia could see the tightness in Chrysalis's neutral expression. Alternia knew that if she was ever going to have a chance of Chrysalis listening to her, she needed to tread carefully.
"Good evening, Great Hive Mother. I thank you for letting me see your true face,"
spoke Alternia smoothly. Much as it pained the Changeling Queen to greet her traitorous sister in such polite fashion, Alternia was aware that every bit of diplomacy would help in convincing Chrysalis. Chrysalis's brow almost creased, but the Changeling forced herself to remain expressionless as she considered Celestia's opening remark. It was as the captured Changelings reported. Princess Celestia had an uncanny knowledge of old Changeling customs. They were unfamiliar to her, Chrysalis could tell from the strained muscles in Celestia's jaw, but still, the Alicorn Princess held herself with elegance and poise unmatched. Though it appeared to the Changeling that Celestia was afraid, and her ethereal tail flickered ever so slightly. Chrysalis chuckled inwardly, though in hindsight this fear would be natural since the Alicorn was in the middle of a Changeling hive.
Why do you approach us now, Celestia?
Asked Chrysalis, her voice cutting through the silence like a whip.
To give you and your hive one final chance for peace,
Replied Alternia evenly. Chrysalis allowed her eyebrows to rise ever so slightly.
I am surprised that you do not ask as to why I did not show myself in the Everfree Forest.
And that was the truth. Chrysalis fully expected Celestia to go and declare war on her hive right away after her trap didn't work.
There is no point to pursuing that avenue of discussion. I am here, unguarded and unharmed, and wishing to discuss how we can maybe achieve peace between our two nations.
Spoke Alternia, her mask unyielding. She could still sense that Chrysalis was afraid and very wary of her. She had to figure out how to gain her trust. That statement made Chrysalis blink. Princess Celestia did come unharmed, unguarded, into the middle of her hive right into her hooves. Did that mean that Celestia and Luna's letter actually was genuine?
So your letter was genuine?
Said Chrysalis warily. Now it was Alternia's turn to blink. Chrysalis had doubted the intent of the letter of peace? Was that why she never showed? Why would Chrysalis Oh.
You thought my letter was a trap to lure you into a secluded spot where I could assassinate you with my royal guard? Why would you think that Luna and I would do such a thing?
Alternia gasped in surprise. Chrysalis sneered.
And exactly what was I supposed to think, Celestia? To believe that everything you wrote of it was true? That you would be so willing to forgive us for our sins?
Alternia narrowed her eyes as her sister let the word sin roll off of her tongue like a barb. The Changeling, in disguise, gritted her teeth and bit back her anger at Chrysalis. She wouldn't throw away peace for her pony simply because of a meager taunt.
Indeed, Chrysalis. Luna and I meant every word that we wrote in that letter. We wish to have a world where changelings and ponies can live side by side. And if that's not possible, then we desire to allow changelings to return to the shadows,
said Alternia, as sincerely as she could.
How am I supposed to believe you, Celestia? You gain nothing from appeasing an enemy,
snarled Chrysalis. All the while, Chrysalis continued to read Celestia. Her tensed muscles and tightened jaws, despite her stoic expression, showed that she was indignant, outraged. Chrysalis understood that as natural, since she had been provoking Celestia to get a better idea of what her true motivations were. The Changeling Queen could also feel suppressed anger, and strangely enough, desperation in the pony.
Should you accept our offer, we gain peace between ponies and changelings. There's nothing more that Equestria wants, Chrysalis, said
Alternia. To Alternia's shock, she felt a flash of rage from her sister. Anger so intense, so fresh, that she almost reeled back. The urge to run and flee from her older sibling almost caused Alternia to scurry backward, but she locked her legs and willed herself to stand.
There can be no peace between ponies and changelings. Not now, not ever,
retorted Chrysalis venomously.
I will not deny that it will be difficult, Chrysalis, but if we work together, we can stop this war,
begged Alternia. The Changeling was confused beyond belief. Why was Chrysalis so angry? Alternia expected jealousy and fear for Equestria's power and Equestria's prosperity, but anger? She had somehow insulted her sister, but she wasn't sure how.
And how would we ever attain peace, Your Highness? I doubt the changelings hold the highest approval rating on the opinion polls right now. Even if we sit down to talk, I am sure that you'll know that my hive will starve to death before any lasting agreements can be made,
growled Chrysalis. Alternia bit her lip and sighed. She hadn't wanted to reveal this fact, but her sister was so mistrustful that she had no choice.
I can offer you love to sustain your hive until we can figure out a solution and negotiate a way for your hive to continue to collect love, said
Alternia. Chrysalis's eyes widened as large as plates, and Alternia had to resist the temptation to chuckle. Slowly, Chrysalis stood from her throne and trotted slowly to Alternia.
You lie. There is no possible way for a pony to transfer or give love energy to a changeling, apart from loving that changeling. And I doubt that'll happen anytime soon. Besides, I doubt your niece will ever agree to spread love among us,
said Chrysalis. Her focus was on Celestia's features. Every one of the changeling's senses was honed like a knife, yet what Chrysalis's observations and instincts told her was surprising. The princess wasn't lying. She had been hiding that information, but had reluctantly admitted it. That reluctance certainly showed that she had been telling the truth.
I know of a spell that can transfer some of the love Equestria has for me to your hive. It will not sustain your hive forever, but it can serve as a temporary measure until we find lasting peace.
spoke Alternia. Chrysalis frowned. She was sure that Celestia wasn't lying about being able to transfer love, but the Changeling's gut told her that the princess was hiding something. Quietly, the Changeling circled the Alicorn, who stood unflinchingly against the Changeling's prying gaze.
I'm not doubting your spell, Celestia, but I don't trust you completely. You come speaking promises of trust and peace, yet you hide your feelings behind a great mask,
said Chrysalis in a softer, still dangerous tone. Alternia almost sighed in relief. At least her sister seemed to have calmed down slightly.
We all have our skeletons in the closet, Chrysalis. I'm sure that you have your own too.
The older Changeling Queen snickered.
True, but that is the delight in the game of deception, finding your enemy's secrets while keeping your own safe.
Alternia allowed herself to chuckle at the old Changeling saying, as Chrysalis stalked off to her throne and sat on it.
I do have some questions, Princess. For one, why would your ponies ever want peace with my kind?
Inquired Chrysalis.
Well, Equestria's ponies desire peace greatly, and are compassionate in nature. There are some who wish revenge upon your kinds, but I am sure that if my ponies are made aware of your hive's difficult situation, we will be able to come up with some sort of agreement. Or at least a non-aggression pact,
said Alternia honestly. Chrysalis's eyes narrowed. Celestia said that with such certainty and belief that the Queen was inclined to believe her, but that made no sense. Not to mention that there was something wrong about Celestia. Her fear, her slightly closed-in stance, and the suppressed nature of her emotions and body language. It all suggested that the Alicorn was hiding some secret, a big secret. And given the pony's actions in the past, why would Celestia offer peace now?
You don't make any sense, Celestia. I have been quite perfectly clear as to what I believe, Chrysalis,
said Alternia.
That is what I believe too, but I need more proof that you will follow this through,
said Chrysalis. She was still suspicious of Celestia, even more so. Before reading Celestia's emotions, Chrysalis expected some anger and hate, but the intensity of the anger was something the Queen could not anticipate. Admittedly, Celestia hid this anger quite well, but the Queen was a veteran at sensing emotions. Chrysalis expected some anger and hate, but the intensity of the anger was something the Queen couldn't anticipate. Admittedly, Celestia hid this anger quite well, but the Queen was a veteran at sensing emotions. Most distressing to Chrysalis, though, as that mixed in with the anger, was fear. Fear of some pony who had some secret that she needed to protect, but what? Alternia frowned, somewhat bewildered. She could sense that Chrysalis wasn't on guard so much, which was an improvement. Yet her sister was still in fear of her, and her anger had not completely abated. It wasn't even the form of anger that Alternia had expected. The Changeling had thought her sister would have a form of ashamed, jealous rage that would make sense, given her defeat at Canterlot. But the emotions that she felt stemmed from a different source, a familiar one. But Alternia couldn't place it.
Chrysalis, can you explain why you cannot trust me? You said that you believe that I want peace, but what more do you demand of me? There is much that I wish to demand of you, Princess, but what I am most concerned by is your attempts to hide your emotions, Celestia. Particularly, I am worried about your anger, well suppressed as it is.
Alternia flinched in fear. She couldn't prevent herself from that instinctive reaction, and Chrysalis sneered.
Surprised? I'm a changeling, Princess. I can sense your emotions. You're very angry right now, vengefully angry even, which I'd kind of understand since I defeated you and harmed your beloved ponies, but still, it is not a comforting thought to sense that you have so much hate for me.
The Changeling's expression suddenly darkened, her visage twisting into a snarl.
Finally, you've had your chance before to have peace. To know that we exist, Celestia, and your ponies rejected it. What makes you think you got a second chance?
Alternia blinked and stared at her sister uncomprehendingly.
I beg your pardon, Queen Chrysalis, but I have no idea as to the chance that you're talking about.
An ear-shattering crack shook the room as Chrysalis slammed her hoof into the throne so hard that the obsidian arm shattered. Alternia almost fired a spell by reflex, but she stopped herself in time. As Chrysalis stood up, flames began to crackle around her as the air began to thrum with magical power. Alternia's frightened eyes met her sister's wrathful gaze. She had obviously said something wrong to earn her sister's ire, but Alternia had no idea as to what.
You dare deny what your ponies did, Celestia! For one moment, I thought you were not as dishonorable as I thought you were!
Boomed the Queen's voice, thundering through the hall like a great tidal wave. Terror at her sister's actions made Alternia quiver in fear.
Chrysalis, please! You need to calm down! I honestly know nothing of what you speak of! Stammered
Alternia. Her instincts were telling her to run and hide, but as Alternia glanced behind her, she saw there was no way out. Why did she have to be so noble and check if her obviously crazy sister wanted peace? What would Twilight, Luna, Blueblood, and her loved ones say? Whatever Chrysalis is talking about is probably referring to the real Celestia and whatever she did. It's just gotta be. Though Alternia better choose her next words carefully because it seems like she's on paper thin ice. Anyways, let's get on to our wise donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Love Dragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Rowland, Crazy Killer 557, Nike Kruger, Daspo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Cadge, RuneScythe 9852, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Michael De Larimore, Dash of Evergreen, Rodney Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Tall Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ron and Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Scouchia, Let's See Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitten 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Needs a Life, Milan Biahanek, and many more super sneaky people. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.